Okay, so I was really hoping this was gonna be another RWBY shirt because it also has Pikachu on it. You got red cheeks, black, black tipped ears, yellow body, and little like white spots in the center of the eye. And this shirt has three of those things, but if you notice, the ears are blue because of the shirt instead of black. So this isn't a RWBY shirt; it's more of a RWBY shirt. So sorry, Blake, not trying to intentionally snub it. Just kind of worked out that way. But actually, talking about Volume 4. Because while I've said before, I've watched Volume 4, I've seen Volume 5, I haven't seen them yet in my rewatch. I wanted to go ahead and get my videos on 1 through 3 recorded before moving on. Part of that, number one, is I just don't want to get too far behind in the videos. I feel like maybe a volume or two feels acceptable, but I don't want to be like all the way on like fucking volume 7. And I'm like, yeah, I'm recording volume 4. Um, but the other reason is this marks a big change in the show's direction, or at least in between Volume 4 and Volume 5, or excuse me, Volume 3 and Volume 4, because of the tragic passing of the creator and director, Monty Oum, during the production of Volume 3. It was the last that he worked on, and one of the questions I had going into this is, which I don't think I mentioned in Volume 1, it's kind of the only other question, is how notable is the change? It's like, now that Monty is no longer working on the show, how noticeable is it that the creator and the director is gone? And that's not something I'm able to answer now. Like I said, I haven't watched Volume 4 yet. But it's kind of why I wanted to go ahead. It's like, let's really get all of my thoughts together on 1 through 3 before I move on. And before I get into the specifics, I do want to say that as far as the volumes go, I feel like Monty saved his best for last. Volume 3 is the culmination of the first two, because it does end this whole Beacon arc. But I think it's also the best one. It's still RWBY. There's still some jank. There's still some parts that don't quite work for me overall. But on the whole, I think it pretty much represents all the parts of RWBY that work very well. And the climax, which instead of just being like the last episode of the last fight, is basically like the last half to 2/3 of the season, is kind of fucking peak. Like, I actually like it a lot. I still maintain my favorite fight or like episode is the red trailer. I still think, to me, that is the best thing in RWBY I have seen to this point. But season 3 is the best season, and it's really the climax that makes it so. So moving on into some of the specifics, like going into the plot, there's really there's three plot threads going on through season 3. So in a way, I guess it's fitting. First and foremost, we're actually doing the Ding Dang Tri-Wizard Tournament, or again, the Vital Festival. It's the Tri-Wizard Tournament. Let's call a spade a spade. I've been doing it throughout these reviews and while watching the fucking show. So the way the tournament is set up is round 1 is team battle, so it's 4v4. Then, if you win that, you go to the next round where you select 2 of your party members, so it's a 2v2, it's doubles. After that, if you win, you select 1 of those 2 to move on to represent the team in the finals, which is one-on-ones until it's all over. And I kind of like it. I do like the fact that it's like, yeah, it's each round you kind of have less people to represent the team, so you really want to make sure you put your best foot forward every time. I don't like how it's like, okay, it's 4, 2, 1, but the 1 has to be from the 2. Like, it'd actually be really cool if you're kind of like, okay, 4v4, like, everyone's going to be used. What do we think is our best combo for the 2v2s? Let's say I was about to combine Weiss and Yang's names, and it started coming out weird, and I stopped that shit instantly. Because here they do like, okay, we're going to do Weiss and we're going to do Yang. then for the 1v1s, we're just going to do Yang. But it would be kind of cool if at that point they're like, okay, Weiss and Yang did a fight. Now for the 1v1s, we're going to send RWBY out for the first one. And then later, maybe like the next time Team RWBY's going, we're going to send someone else in there. So you're kind of, the opponent doesn't always know what to expect. I think that'd be really cool. It's not quite the same idea, but I'm reaching kind of deep into my bag of references for this one. But in Metabots, because you've got like the 3-man team, it was, oh gosh, I can try to remember the names. Icky, I think was the name of the main character, with Metabee, and then Koji, I think was the other guy, and I don't remember the name of his Metabot, but it was the like ninja thing. And then there was Space Metafighter X, and because Space Metafighter X was in hiding, and it was like it was implied that he died, but he didn't actually die, if I remember correctly. It's been a long fucking time since I've seen Metabots. But they essentially just had a different friend of theirs dress up as Space Metafighter X every time and use their Metabot. So there's a specific episode where they even talk about that, where it's the dude, again, I can't remember his name, but his Metabot was Crosser Dog, and instead of having a dog medal, he had a monkey medal in, which was incompatible, which is why Crosser Dog was complete dog shit throughout the entire show. And Koji keeps getting on him for being the weak link of the team. And the team they're fighting, which I believe was like an Egyptian team, because these are like the like world nationals and shit, like the international competition. It's like, no, Koji, you're the weak link, because Metabee has the Metaforce, and Space Metafighter X is a different Metabot every time, so you never know what to expect. But with you, we always know what to expect. You're not that good. So it was reminded me of that. But like, if that's something you could do, you could be Space Metafighter X. And like, yeah, every round we can kind of switch a little bit, at least in the singles. It's not just going to be Yang every time. If we feel like, given the remaining combatants, maybe Weiss would actually do really well. But maybe Weiss could actually do well and not fucking job. Let's send RWBY out for like this round or so. I think that would have been kind of cool. But yes, I giggle. Because the fact that for the 2v2s, they're like, okay, who are we going to pick? Let's use Weiss and let's use Yang. Is a decision, like, I'm not going to say like, oh, this is a jank part of the season or anything. But I think it's funny as fuck. I get it from a like strategy perspective. It's like, what is, of your 4-man team, what is everybody's role? RWBY is the idea person. She's the one that comes up with all the strategies. She has a really cool, strong weapon. And she's really good at like finishing off monsters because of her blade. Which maybe isn't something you want her using against like students, when part of her strategy is like, all right, how can I use my scythe and the recoil of the fucking sniper rifle to cut things heads off? Weiss is crowd control and support. Freezing things in place, using glyphs for momentum, using them for jumping, using them for speed. So she's a very good person to have in doubles, so she can support you like your win condition. Blake is also decent support. She's fast enough to kind of be a distraction. The after images are very good decoys, especially when she starts using like some of Weiss's ammo, which I believe is something she did in season 2. I don't think I brought up, but I actually thought that was a really cool thing. And there's quite a few times where she'll use like the kunai with chain and just like swing shit around like for extra momentum that I think is really cool. And Yang being the very unga bunga person who, as RWBY says in season 2, it's like, yeah, her semblance is the more damage she takes, the more damage she does. I'm like, that sounds like kind of bullshit. I don't know. I feel like they're trying to make it like a Super Saiyan thing, where it's like, like when a Saiyan gets really close to death, but they survive it, it makes them stronger. But it sounds like Yang's thing is just, if she takes a bunch of damage, she can take damage back. Again, I feel like there's a way you can explain that to be really, really fucking cool. Like a kinetic energy thing. Like I would keep absorbing the hits, and the more I absorb, the more I can like fire back in a blast. Which is something Clay has told me about. Like he has a character in one of his works that is very similar. I'm like, that's fucking cool. I actually dig that. It's a very interesting fighting style. Yang's is just, I guess, if you beat the shit out of her enough, she can hit you harder. But anyways, it feels like Yang is supposed to be your unga bunga win condition. So the idea of the win condition and our support character being the team in doubles makes a lot of sense strategically. Weiss fucking sucks. Like, I'm gonna say it. As a character, she's gotten a lot better in Season 2 and Season 3. Her track record fighting is not good. Literally in her trailer, she is jobbing. There's a point where she's getting her ass kicked, and that's why she has the kick-ass scar. When they're doing the fucking train fight, she starts losing her fight, which Yang does say about that, but it's like, yeah, Weiss kind of loses her fight. And again, when the dude just like swinging a chainsaw at her, it's like she should have maybe not necessarily have been dead, but should have taken substantial damage, like crippling damage. I don't know. I don't know if it should have worked. Now maybe it should have, but I don't know. I feel like when you get smacked that hard with a chainsaw, you're not supposed to, with a revved up chainsaw, you should just walk it off after. And then even here, like, when they do the 2v2 fight, she's just getting her ass kicked the entire fight. And then her strategy is like, okay, I'm not doing so well, so I'm going to do what's called a pro gamer move and do a sacrifice play. I'm going to take myself out, but I'm going to take the other guy out too, and it doesn't even work. It takes herself out, does damage to the other dude, but then he's still going. You're like, well, Weiss, why are you so trash? Like, why did you pick Weiss? I get it on paper, but not in execution. And then Yang. It's like I said in Volume 2. She does her fight with Neo, and she gets her ass whipped. I literally think she did no damage. This is the win condition? That's pretty fucking bad. And then there's her fight with Adam at the end of the volume. It's definitely in fucking air quotes. Like, yeah, for the Unga Bunga really strong one, she really isn't. So I'm not gonna lie, just like, yeah, we're gonna use Weiss and Yang. We think that's the best strategy. I'm just kind of giggling to myself. Like, I don't think it's jank, because it makes sense, but does it? And I feel like I had to say that. But yeah, you do see the progression of the tournament. They win their fights, and we'll talk about the little fights a little specifically. They win their fight 4v4. They win the doubles fight in spite of Weiss. Then Yang wins her fight against Mercury, but due to some genjutsu shenanigans, ends up breaking his leg, so she gets DQ'd, and then Team RWBY is out of the tournament. A fight between Pyrrha and Penny happens, which is magnetism against metal, and Penny dies? It's always one of those things where I'm not a super 100 on it, because on the one hand, I'm like, she's fucking dead, but I'm also, on the other hand, like, she is a robot. I mean, they specifically say that she does have a soul, so I'm like, if you put her body back together, would she be okay? Like, is there, like a Ghost in the Shell, like how everyone has your ghost, which is essentially your soul. Like, is there, like, a ghost that Penny has? Can you take that? Like, was someone able to recover it? Possibly Ironwood did. Because I know I've seen clips of a later season, and I'm like, that's Penny. And I don't know if that's Penny, and like she was able to fully be rebuilt, it's the same person, or this is the next model, and it's not the same personality, and then RWBY's like, hey, this is my friend, but not my friend, and oh boy, this is awkward. Like, I genuinely don't know how that works. But Penny dies, maybe, kind of, mostly, which leads to the end game. So let's go ahead and talk about that. Cinder's plan is, I want to sow discord and chaos for two reasons. Reason number one, Doing that and getting all this panic and unrest will attract the Grimm, which will lead to a lot of Grimm attacking the Vital Festival and attacking Beacon. Which, A, will provide me cover for the shit I have to do, and I'll talk about that in a second, and also, it will... Oh, excuse me. It's gonna make people lose their faith in the system. They will lose faith in the government, in the schools, in the military, in the heroes that are protecting them. This is starting to sound very My Hero Academia, which in hindsight means Hero Academia is starting to sound a lot like the first season of RWBY. And that does kind of make sense. It's like, yeah, we want to change the foundation of the world. And this is how we're doing it. Because they set up the Genjutsu thing for Yang. It's like, wow, look at this student from Beacon. Someone who, a beacon, like a shining light in the darkness. And this is what they do? They attack people who are already down and cripple them? This is what we're teaching? Look at this other student from Beacon. She ripped this poor girl asunder. Look at what we're training to be our heroes. Violent brutes. The people here are no better than the animals. They're no better than the Grimm. And it's like that everywhere. Atlas, Haven, Mistral, Vacuo. Every place is like this. Training the next generation of monsters. You've clearly seen it for yourselves. Why put your faith in people who not only disregard each other like this, but who can't even protect you? And then Grimm shit happens. You're like, that's pretty effective. That's some kind of grade A propaganda right there. And like I was saying, it's also cover for her other thing, which is becoming the Fall Maiden entirely or in entirety. Which leads to the final plot point, which I actually kind of put in the middle of the two, because it happens after the tournament starts, but before the end game. Which also the end game is like, we're doing all this shit. By the way, Ironwood has his giant mecha army, which we've now hacked, by the way. Which is one of those things I'm like, how did they do that? On the one hand, I'm like, okay, I get it, because Cinder, went in there. She did some infiltration in Season 2, and it seemed... I don't remember. It's was she downloading information or was she uploading a virus? It might have been both, because they were able to control, the matches whenever they wanted, and I'm assuming it's when you did that, it gave you access to all their shit and full ability to do so. But then I'm also like, which one of you is the hacker? I don't think I know anything about Mercury, Emerald, or Cinder that says they are skilled, or even Neapolitan, or they are skilled enough with technology to be able to do that shit without Ironwood being able to know about it. It's I guess I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, but press X to doubt at the same time, you know? It's I'll allow it, but I'm not super sure. But getting into the maidens. This is the big lore moment of the series, and from what I remember, this is kind of what the series becomes about. There are these 4 magical girls, winter, spring, summer, and fall. They call her fall. Usually it's the Fall Maiden, not the Autumn Maiden. I just like the word autumn better when referring to the season, so sometimes I'll call her fall, sometimes I'll call her autumn. Kind of like when I'm saying volumes or seasons when I'm talking about the show. But there's 4 of them. The show doesn't really define what they can do, aside from saying magic, and that, hey, no 2 maidens are the same. No Winter Maiden is the same as her predecessor or her successor. And they make that sound not just in terms of, her personality, but in terms of the power set, which I don't like, because I'm that, I don't really know what they can do, so I don't know why this is such a huge fucking deal. Now, like, granted, we do see what Cinder can do with these powers. I'm like, yeah, like, that's huge. Pyrrha can control poles. Okay, magnets are cool too. But it's like, she can control fucking magnetism. That's a big fucking power. And another thing that they mention, because Osmond tells Pyrrha all this shit. He's like, yeah, like, have you heard the fairy tale about the four maidens who were like the seasons and they could do magical shit? Yeah, it's a really nice story. Yeah, it's not a story. It's real shit. It's magic. And she's like, oh, so like dust or a semblance? No, it's magic. Like, you can do crazy shit without dust. And this is where I start to raise a lot of questions. What the fuck is a semblance? Because they say it a few times, but don't really say what they are. Now, my understanding from watching the show is a semblance is essentially a personalized superpower, which I imagine it's something related to who you are as a person. Like, it's something that comes from your aura, which is your soul. Ruby is someone who, I don't want to say headstrong in terms of being stubborn, but she's just like, I gotta go do this thing. Like, I have a plan, I'm gonna see it through, and I'm not really gonna question my plan now that I have it. I'm gonna run straight at things. So her power lets her run straight at things. It's still a little unclear how it works. Like, is it super speed? Is it short range teleportation? Is it full on wind powers? Because depending on the scene, it can be any combination of the three or multiple at once. You've got Weiss, who it's glyphs, but then it's not glyphs. It's a summoning ritual. No, that's not summoning. Summoning is, if I remember my Naruto correctly, there might have been a couple hand signs, but I mostly remember it's like, I need to bleed. Let me bite my thumb real quick. Bam, and then frog. Didn't have to reach too deep in the bag for that one. It's fucking Naruto. But yeah, there's that. Yang's, it's, you know, being someone who's a thrill seeker and is kind of just feels like she just wants to fight things. It makes sense that her semblance is something that helps her fight. Blake even says, I run away a lot. I hate that it's what I do, but it's what I do. My semblance is me leaving an after image so I can escape easier. John, if I remember correctly, it is essentially a Sharingan. He can copy shit. Which, the fact that he's someone who doesn't believe in himself but believes in others, being able to copy others makes a lot of sense. But then you got shit like Pyrrha, who can control magnetism. What does that have to do with her soul? Is it like my magnetic personality? Well, not really. I mean, I guess you can make an argument. It's people are attracted to her because they think she's really cool, but they think she's so cool that they also feel repelled by her, and that's where the magnetism comes in. But like, I don't know about that, Chief. That feels kind of weak. I can see it. I can make the argument for it, but it's one of those where it's like, I press X to doubt. Like, I don't know about that one. But also, when the way Osmond, like, the way that conversation between Osmond and Pyrrha goes, it makes it sound like dust allows us to use magic and to, like, do weird, crazy shit, which we have seen throughout the show. Makes sense. Maidens can do weird, crazy shit without dust. Okay. Again, like, to use a Mistborn comparison, it's essentially if a character could use allomancy without swallowing metals. Okay, that's really fucking powerful. I get it. But then it makes me wonder, so then why are semblances different? Do you have to have dust on you to use a semblance? Because that's never been explained. And maybe it's in like a World of Remnant thing, but I don't really want to watch all of those. Like, I want to be able to just watch the show and have this shit be explained as part of the show. They made a point in the show to explain to John, this is what aura is. Aura creates a little shield around you, and it kind of gives you your power. It maybe give you a little bit of a boost. In the show, they explained 4 maidens and blah, 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 and how the power transfer works. Let's talk about that in a second. So why can't they explain? Like, literally, the very first scene of the show is a narration about dust, and it's essentially the equalizer between man and monster because of what human beings can do when they have dust. So it sounds like you need dust to use your semblance, which I can buy as like an explanation, but I don't think I've really seen that. Now again, like with Weiss and her glyphs, I do see that, so that makes sense. With Blake and her after images, though, she uses dust to give her after images some extra effects. So, like, okay, a semblance can be buffed or, like, slightly modified by dust, but it looks like Blake doesn't need dust to use the semblance in the first place. And it's like, does that mean Yang needs dust to fight shit harder? I haven't seen that. Does Ruby need dust for, like, her teleporties? I haven't seen that either. Like, when the dude, like, was zapping Nora with a stun gun and she absorbs it because her semblance allows her to absorb lightning. Did she, like, there was nothing implying that dust was being consumed. When I see Pyrrha controlling poles, I don't see dust being consumed. I like that idea. I think that makes a lot of sense. And when you say that, the maidens don't need dust. They don't need the equalizer to fight with monsters the way that huntsmen and huntresses do. They don't need dust to activate their special powers. They can just do it. That's why we say that's magic, because it is something that's special. But it doesn't make sense with what I've been shown. So I'm like, this lack of explanation for the magic system feels kind of flat. And again, the way they kind of explain it is, yeah, like what kind of crazy shit can you do as a maiden? Well, no 2 maidens are ever the same. Well, again, if like a semblance is more of a physical buff, Ruby, being the headlong person, can move a little bit faster. Yang, being Punchy McPuncherson, can fight a little bit better. I can kind of get that. But when you have, and then if it was with the maidens, it's like, no, like you have something that's way more like in tune with the earth. Because you do see Cinder use it, and the Fall Maiden as well, doing a lot of shit with fire, with wind. I don't think I saw them do much with earth and water. If so, I maybe just missed it. But I can believe that. Pyrrha uses magnetism, and I've never seen her use dust to trigger it. Magnetism looks like the kind of thing that would be more in a maiden's domain. If Pyrrha's things like, yeah, what does your semblance do? I don't know. It makes like my reflexes better. Like I can use it to analyze a fight. Like, I don't know. Like that's the kind of thing that a semblance would be if a maiden is that much stronger. But magnetism's pretty fucking powerful and like a literal force in nature. Why is that something a really talented but regular ass person can do? It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Then, when they talk about maiden succession, which is like, okay, so this is how it works. Only a young woman can be a seasonal maiden. Guess that's why they're called the maidens. Okay, I can kind of buy that. So, how does the power transfer work? So, when a current maiden dies, the last young woman she thinks about will inherit the power. Aside from the obvious of me going, okay, literally, how do you check this? Because I don't know. Is it kind of like in Dune, when someone becomes a Reverend Mother, they get the memories of the previous Reverend Mother, which contains the memories of the previous and the previous, etc., etc., etc. So that way okay, my cat just like walked into my room and his eyes were glowing fully blue. So, like, I'm talking about Dune, and then he actually had the Dune eyes. That was kind of badass. But is it something like that where it's like when someone becomes a maiden, they're like, oh shit, I now, like, know the thoughts of the woman before me. And yeah, I was the last person she thought about. Like, do you have access to that? Or not? Because you didn't explain if you did. So it just leaves me wondering, how the fuck would you know this? But anyways, with that aside, I actually kind of fuck with that. It's a really interesting thing of like the last woman you thought about, last young woman you thought about. In my dying moments, I thought of my daughter. So my daughter inherited my power. Or, in my last moments, I thought of my killer. And now my killer inherits my power. Oh, I see why this could be a dip. This could be helpful. This could be a bad thing. That's kind of interesting. What I also like about it is you can't be sneaky. Like, think of the Elder Wand from Harry Potter. They specifically mentioned the Elder Wand. It's through disarming someone, not through killing someone. But if you kill them straight up and don't disarm them, well, that's going to count as disarming, so it goes to you. So that the brother was killed in his sleep. Because there's no other rules, but it's like, I killed you, I took your wand, bam. You can't just kill someone in their sleep to get the maiden power, though, because they wouldn't know that you're killing them, so they wouldn't have thought about you, so you didn't inherit shit. I kinda dig that. That's actually kinda cool. Now, I have emphasized a few times, young woman. Because what they say is, if the maiden did not think of a young woman, if she thought of a dude or an old woman, the power does not get inherited to that person she thought of. It's random. It's just the power goes, I don't know what the fuck to do. I'll go to a random person. It doesn't even say, like, it goes to her next of kin, like intestate succession. It doesn't go to the closest, like, young woman in the area, so you can at least do that to kind of track it down. Like, all right, she died here. It's gonna, like, if you kill a maiden in her sleep, well, she didn't think of anybody, it's gonna jump to the closest vessel. Like, nah, it's just random at that point. Why? Like, even the show's like, yeah, it's this. I think I was trying to do a Vic Mañana for a second. I don't think it quite worked. But, like, yeah, like, the show points out that this is a really stupid... I think they specifically call it, like, a convoluted and or stupid rule. And it is. And it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, you know, sometimes calling out your world for its, like, weird quirks and its bizarre rules can be kind of funny and entertaining. Then there's other times where, like, yeah, so you're fully acknowledging this is fucking stupid. Why did you do it? Because I do, it's like, yeah, you know, like, it's so bonded to this person, it went for their next of kin. It looked for someone literally close to them. I buy that. It went to the closest available person. I buy that too. Not, you didn't think of the right person? Random bullshit. I don't think this quite works the way it's presented. Both the succession bullshit and, so why is being a maiden so important? You can do cool shit without dust. What kind of shit? Just cool shit, I guess. Okay, but again, like, with semblances, I've seen some cool shit. Literally, like, throughout the fucking tournament, people are like, oh man, this dude's semblance with his trumpet, he can make 3 of himself. Like, that's fucking cool. Does he need dust to trigger that? I don't know, because there's nothing that's really indicated you need dust to trigger resemblance. If that was fully explained, and I don't know, maybe it actually was in that very first episode, and they're like, yeah, this is what dust does. Maybe they did say that. But even if they did, it's not something that's been scene. Because I'm just seeing characters, like, do shit, and it doesn't, like, does RWBY use dust for her speed? I've never seen her consume it. I've never seen her use it. You can make an argument that it's like, that's, like, what's in the ammo in Crescent Roads. I'm like, I figured that was just, you know, bullets. Like, it seems like dust is something that's really fucking expensive. I mean, I guess her dad and her uncle, well, I mean, her uncle's not really going to be helping her. He's busy doing shit for Oz. It seems like her dad's a renowned huntsman. So maybe, and it seems like her mom was a very renowned huntress, but even when you see their house at the end of Volume 3, it's like they're living in this, like, little cabin in the woods. That's a great fucking movie. But they just kind of live in this, like, little cabin somewhere, so you're like, okay, it's not like they're filthy fucking rich and they can just afford dust out the ass. Like, are they just getting it from Weiss? I don't know. Her card got declined. It's making me ask a lot of questions about the world. And I remember saying that in my video yesterday. How sometimes there's lines in the show that reference real world shit. And while the line is funny, and there is one of those in season 3 that I mentioned, it's, you know, they don't give out medals for almost kid. They do, and they're called silver. Genuinely funny line. But I'm like, why do you know the concept of silver medals? Do you have an Olympics? Is there an Olympics? Like, everything coming together? I mean, is that what the Vital Festival is? Is that the Olympics? Do you get a gold medal if you win and a silver medal if you come in second? Is that it? And if not, like, do you have an actual, like, Olympic board and shit? It's like, you are now making me ask questions based on this one joke. And again, I said this yesterday too. Maybe I'm looking way too into it. Maybe that's like, yeah, it's just a joke. You're not supposed to read into it that far. I mean, fair. But as you can tell, I'm very anal about that kind of thing. And it just makes me, it's like, I don't want to be taken out of the story. Whether it's by, like, a joke, a plot event, explanation of your fucking magic system. I want everything to feel cohesive. And when cracks form, that can be a problem. And I feel like with this maiden shit, the cracks are forming. Now we'll see, and like I said, like, I think season 3 is really, really fucking good, and it's the climax that sells it. But this is one of the elements that doesn't work for me. We'll see what they do with it later. Maybe it does become a lot more clear in later seasons, like, yeah, we need dust to use our semblances. Like, we're going on a journey now, and we have a limit. Don't use your abilities unless you have to, or unless, like, we can restock and afford to use them. That makes sense to me. I don't know if they do that. I don't know if they do a lot of really interesting shit with maiden powers. You're like, okay, now that I've seen some more maidens fight, yeah, that's more than just what a semblance could do. Like, I want to be able to see that. But the prognosis here isn't very good. The rest of the story in the season, the actual progression of the tournament, and Cinder's endgame, though, I think are good shit. So, oh gosh, what is that? It's 38 minutes already, and I haven't even gotten to the fights. There's a lot of fights in Volume 3. The round 1 fight. I don't have a whole lot to say about this one. It's a 4v4. There's one character who's just, like, on a floating skateboard. I don't remember the other people on their team. And I also remember this one part where there's, like, a giant ice ball or, like, a giant snowball, and then Blake starts swinging Yang around to get momentum for, like, a game-winning punch. And, like, I thought it was pretty fun. It's not even really a fight, but you do get this very, very quick scene of Cinder's team, which is her, I almost said Emily, her, Emerald, Mercury, and their fourth is Neapolitan in disguise. And it goes by, it's like, hey, how did your fight go? It went pretty okay. And then it's just, oh yeah, they beat the shit out of someone. So not much of a fight. I would have wished to have seen more of Neapolitan doing something, but you do get a little more later in the season. You get Team Juniper's fight, which that had the dude like in the background like sniping people, which was very confusing to me. Because on the one hand, I'm like, that's not a bad strategy. We're gonna have a sniper out there in the like in the trees and shit, kind of picking people off and doing some support. Okay, that's a cool idea. That also means your guys on the ground are fighting 3v4, which means Team Juniper has an extra fourth person that could theoretically just beeline toward the sniper. John has a shield, so he could actually like hold up his shield and deflect. Pyra can do. I knew I was gonna do it at some point. Pyra can do that, and then again with her magnetism, could maybe even fuck with the bullet, which would be sick as hell. I know she doesn't really want to show off what she could do, but theoretically, Nora, they have do something else. You're like, you can absorb lightning. That we got a little bit of lightning effects going on. Go take care of that. And Ren, I don't know what Ren's semblance does. They might have said it, I just don't remember. He didn't really do much in this fight. He just kind of jobbed for a bit. But I was just kind of like what we're seeing is pretty cool. Why aren't they just saying like, all right, the three of us will take care of these three. Like, someone go take care of the sniper. But at the same time, we did get to see John like actually like, all right, I as the leader of the team, strategy. Nora, do this. Ren, do this. Pyra, do this. I will do this. And I liked that. I liked us actually fucking seeing John being the leader that he's supposed to be. There's also this part in the middle where he's like, okay, he basically pulls a RWBY and starts like listing off like signature moves and like combo moves. But with Team RWBY, it was something that was clearly defined by the team, like off screen. But every time RWBY's saying, checkmate, Bumblebee, like White Rose and shit, everyone knows exactly what they're doing, and here they didn't. So I'm like, John is a really good leader. Okay, not as good as I thought. Which does lead to this very funny conversation where like they're in the middle of a fight, and Pierre basically asks him to DTR in the middle of the fight, like to actually define the relationship. It's like, so that's like our couple name? Like, why do we have a couple? Like, is this like a couple name, John? Or like, what are we doing here and shit? And then the other guy's like, hey, assholes, like we're in the middle of a fight. Can we get back to that? No, assholes, we are in the middle of a family meeting. You can hold on for a second. It's like, I got a kick out of that. I actually think that's a really fun scene. Oh, the next fight is Team Sun, which is SSSN. And even then, I'm like, Team Sun. I mean, I get it, his name is Sun, like RWBY's the same shit, but when I see three S's, I don't think three S's and an N. I don't think Sun. I would think more like season. But okay, versus Team Indigo, who's just like a bunch of like rambobs. And first off, I remember the music in this fight was really fucking cool. Second of all, there's this one girl who's like just controlling wind. So again, like, isn't that like a maiden powered, like with nature and shit? I don't fucking know. And that was kind of cool, but I actually didn't like this fight very much. I just remember it was like basically the whole fight is Neptune's like, there's water, I'm scared of water, I ain't doing that shit. I'm too cool for that. Which I found just kind of annoying throughout the fight. Now, some of the actual fight choreography was pretty cool. But then the way the fight ends is they get the three girls are just standing in water. And they're kind of standing there for a while. Then Neptune gets over. Gun turns into like a... Excuse me, like, I don't even want to say a spear. It's like a baton. The baton starts getting electrocuted. He then puts it in the water. It travels quickly, but not instantly. And then the girls just stand there, get electrocuted, and then are taken out. And I just remember thinking, I was like, it feels like they jobbed. It's like, I don't, like, why were all three of them just standing there? Like, they weren't trying to get closer. Like, Sun is by himself because Neptune's not really helping. And they're not taking advantage of this. It's kind of dumb. And then the two commentators, the doctor and Mr. Walrus Mustache. And Walrus Stash was like, you know what I would call that victory? Shocking? No. Well earned. Which you said was stupid. Which is a line I do think is really funny. And I remembered that line. I was like, I remembered the interaction. It's like, that's funny. but I don't think that was well earned. I think that was actually kind of shitty. I liked the music in the fight. I didn't really like the fight. Also, I think this is a good transition into just a really quick thing. But I'm about to talk about the Crow and Winter fight. I'm about to talk about Crow and talking about Team Sun, which to me I'm like, so season? No, that's not how you pronounce it. His team, it's STRQ. It's the S is Summer, the T is RWBY and Yang's dad, whose name I don't remember. I think it's like Ty or some shit. The R is Raven and the Q is Crow. Number one, I fucking hate this character. What asshole spells the word Crow with a Q? It's QROU. It bothers me unreasonably. Like, I have actual genuine issues with Crow as a character. This, though, like, I hate this. I actively hate this. But Team STRQ is Team Strike, which actually makes sense. It's not like a Sun thing where I'm like, it's season. Like, that actually makes. I'm like, no, I can buy that. But when I first saw it spelled out, I was like, ST, so Team Stork? And given the fact that half the members on the team, at least, I don't know, maybe Summer could do this shit too, but at least 2 members on the team have the power to fucking turn into birds. Team Stork would have actually been a pretty apt name. And I don't really have anywhere else in the review to say this. I don't think I wrote that down anywhere. I'm just thinking about it. Like, I think yesterday I was going for a walk, and I was like, Team Strike, it should have been Team Stork. Oh, well. I thought I'd bring that up. Then you get to the fight with Crow and Winter, which is another fight where the music, like, there was, like, 3 fights in this season where I was like, the music's really fucking good. It was the one I just mentioned, this one, and the one with Yang and Weiss. I was like, I'm bopping to this. This is a fight where it's like, plot-wise, I'm like, okay, it's just establishing that Crow's a fucking dickhead. It's a really, really fun fight, though. It feels like this is Weiss at her peak through her sisters. Like, this is the kind of shit Weiss could do if she wasn't dog shit in, like, every fight. And I honestly had a lot of fun with it. I think it's a really cool fight. After that, you get a fight with Penny, her party member, and it looked like 2 dudes from Team Cardinal. Like, I wasn't sure. They might have just been some Rambobs. It might have been like a reused design. I'm not quite sure. But like, it was very quick. There really wasn't anything to say. I wrote it down because it happened. Then you get the fight with White and Yang versus Weiss and Yang, Cinderella, as I sometimes call her, versus the trumpet dude and I called her Neon Avril Lavigne because I didn't want to say Skater Boy because like, well, she's not a guy, but the person that did Skater Boy was Avril Lavigne, who I know I said that Neapolitan talks more shit than everyone combined without saying a word. Neon Avril Lavigne talked a lot of shit, and, fucking Big Band over here also talked a lot of shit, and I actually liked this fight a lot. 1, the music was great. 2, people talking shit. And 3, was like, no, this is actually just pretty cool. Like, I like seeing a dude with a trumpet, like, fuck shit up, and I liked the idea behind his semblance. Like, he's a quartet. There just become 4 of him doing shit with the trumpet. That's sick as hell. This girl, like, skating around on fucking rollerblades and, like, chewing bubble gum. And there's just fucking rainbow streaks. Like, she's Rainbow Dash everywhere. Maybe that's what I should have called her. Like, Avril Lavigne Rainbow Dash or some shit. I don't know. I actually just, like, no, this is... I'm having a good time. Wish Weiss wasn't complete shit in this fight, though. Like, I'm sorry. It's really, really funny to me how bad she jobs. Because like, this season does introduce the summoning aspect, which I remember becoming, like, something she did a lot more in 4 and 5, at least in 5, like, it was like, this is how I'm fighting now, which in a way makes sense. It's like, this is how I'm trying to fight, and there's cool shit that she can do. I love her as a support, but she's not she does pull her weight as a support, but it's like, okay, if there's other ways I could fight and be more effective, I should probably try to do that. We'll see how it goes, how much I actually like that fighting style, or if she's still jobbing using that fighting style. But I feel like, given her track record over the first 3 seasons, a fighting style change isn't really out of it makes sense. It really does. But I do like the fight against Team Funky and the fact that they're called Team Funky. It's like, man, I don't think we ever see these characters again. Like they show up, and it's like part of the climax and shit, but it's like, I don't know if we ever really see these characters again. I hope so, because they're kind of cool. There's the fight between Emily Mercury. Why do I keep calling her Emily? Between Emerald Mercury and Team Coffee, which is like Coco, the briefcase girl, and the dude with like the big naginata. And they jobbed. It was pretty boring, again, from the fact that like in Volume 2, they really showed off and showcased Coco. She had no build-up at all in the season. This is her first appearance. I'm assuming they're showing her, so I know this character. I care about this character. I could see her do cool shit. Oh, no, she just jobbed. Okay, I guess maybe like, hey, let's build her up because she's kind of cool, and it's going to make Emerald and Mercury look that much stronger, but like, that was... The only thing that happens is like Emerald using the genjutsu shit. Like, she can make people see things that aren't there, which is what she does to Yang to make it look like Mercury's attacking her, which is why Yang fucking... Ooh, I don't know if you heard that, but I did that, and then like my wrist like fucking snapped. It made the sound that Mercury's leg did in the show. And I was like, I should maybe get that checked out. That's a little spooky. Which kind of leads to my own questions. I'm like, so Emerald can do that from a semblance perspective. It's like, all right, she's like a thief. She wants people to be able to see different things than what's actually going on, kind of shit. She wants to hide from people. Like, I can buy that being her power. But I thought Neapolitan was doing illusions, because she can like disguise herself as different people. But it's not necessarily transforming, because when she first appeared, she like stands by Torchwick, and then they show up somewhere else, so it's like, I kind of made an illusion here for you guys to see, and can multiple people have the same semblance, or things that are very similar in terms of their semblance? Again, like, I don't really fully know how this shit works, and does Emerald... I mean, they have a lot of dust because of all the stealing, so I imagine Emerald has enough to do what she does, but is she actually using dust? Because I'm not, like, seeing her use dust. All she says is that, like, man, making an illusion for a lot of people to see, is kind of exhausting, which also leads to a question of, did Yang see the illusion, or did everyone else see the illusion? Like, it was playing on the screen, so either she made a big illusion for them. I think she made the illusion for Yang, but the way she talked about, like, how tiring it is made it sound like she made the illusion for everybody but Yang, which makes no sense, because it would make way more sense just have Yang see it. Anyways, the fight between Ems and Mercury and Team Coffee was, like, kind of mid as fuck. What the... Oh, the next fight we get is in, like, the flashback backstory episode where it's Cinder, Ems, and Mercury fighting the Fall Maiden, which is actually sick as hell. Like, you're seeing her, like, do some crazy Avatar state shit, and Cinder going from, like, my swords into, like, a bow and arrow and shit, and, like, that's dope as hell. Mercury is kicking McKickman, which I think is cool. Like, you see the genjutsu working and whatnot. I don't know why I did that for a genjutsu. That's solar flare. I actually thought that one was really cool. It made up for... I don't want to be that asshole, but, like, it made up for kind of some of the more mid fights in the first half of the season. Which is why I'm like, the first half of the season, like, I think the fights are, with a few exceptions, kind of okay. And then there's the whole explaining of the maidens, which I'm like, boy, I don't know about this. Like, I don't think this is bad overall, but, like, it's just kind of okay, but there's some bright spots. But then you get the second half, and, like, the fights that are happening in the climax are like, oh, okay, Monty, show the fuck off. This is awesome. And I feel like that fight between Cinder and the Fall Maiden really do that. I also forgot to include Yang v Mercury. Like I did include it. It's right under Cinder's, but it should have been before. That's actually a pretty cool fight. It doesn't last long, but I really like Mercury's fighting style, so I think it's dope. Pyrrha and Penny doesn't last super long for obvious reasons, but the little bit you get is still fucking cool. Mostly because, like, I really like watching Pyrrha fight because she's really, really good at it. And I like watching Penny fight because it's a robot girl, like, doing all this crazy shit with knives and strings, and then the knives become laser pistols. Like, her weapon is fun. It doesn't last long, but it's dope. And the ending, which is like, all right, I'm using polarity to, like, fuck with your weapons, but instead, because the girl is made of metal, it rips her apart. And I think it's actually, like, shot really fucking well. It's also intercut with this thing of, I don't think I actually wrote this down, but of Ruby trying to run from Mercury when she doesn't have Crescent Rose on her, which isn't really a fight. It's kind of an action scene, though, and I think it's pretty cool. And then just, like, Ruby watching her friend get ripped to shreds and Pyrrha's fucking abject horror, not of just what happened, but of what she did to another person, is really fucked up, and it's pretty effective. I think it's a really good scene. After that, you get, like, the students fighting the Grimm that are coming in, and, like, Team Funky's helping out, and, like, Sun is doing shit. And then the teachers show up to help out. And the two things I really remember from this fight, number one, Walrus Man's weapon is an axe that's also a fucking blunderbuss. That's some real Bloodborne shit. And I loved it. And also, because Ruby still doesn't have her weapon on her at this point, she's like, yeah, like, her phone, it was either she lost her phone or it was destroyed. Like, Mercury, like, knocked it out of her hand or, like, stepped on it. I don't remember what. She's like, I can't fucking call my weapon. I'm fucked. She picks up one of Penny's knives and starts doing shit with it. And I really, really like that. Like, my friend died, and I'm going to use her weapon in her. Like, I don't have anything else, but I'm going to use her weapon. I don't think she takes it with her. I don't think she uses it in later seasons. I hope she does. I hope I'm wrong about that. Because that's really cool. Like, yeah, don't use it instead of Crescent Rose. But it'd be a cool thing to have in addition to Crescent Rose, you know? Like, I really liked that touch. Also not a fight. But probably my favorite scene in the show proper. Again, don't know if it beats the Red trailer. But I know I talked about this in another video. It's the scene where it's like, all right, like, you're going to go from Beacon, or, like, you're going to go from the arena into, like, the city to protect people from the Grimm. And Ruby looks up, like, sees an airship doing shit. It's the one that Torchwick's on. She's like, okay, I have to get into that. So she jumps out of her airship, uses her semblance to essentially double jump back onto, like, where the Coliseum is. This part, she also has her weapon back. She like, hey, I need to borrow your phone. Gets Crescent Rose. But she air jumps back onto the thing, gets Crescent Rose, uses the fact that it's a scythe to fucking hook the blade onto a locker. Like, basically jumps onto her scythe, activates the locker so it shoots up into the fucking sky, jumps off it again to get onto the airship. And watching it, I believe my reaction. I think I fucking clapped. I remember just going like, that is the fucking Symphogear bullshit that I have been wanting to see from this show. The slingshot is close. Like, that is fun, that is creative. The food fight, that's super fun, super creative. But I want to see something insane. Like, I have to get onto that airship. Let me do all this craziness. like in the fucking premiere of Symphogear Axis, they're like, we need to get onto that ship. Okay, we're gonna use the missiles it's shooting as platforms to fucking jump onto it. They're like, oh shit, there's a missile heading toward our helicopter. We're just gonna open the doors of the helicopter. The missile's gonna fly into the helicopter, not hit anybody, keep going, and then when it's free and clear of the helicopter, then it's going to explode. Or the fucking shit in the start of season 3 where they get shot into space into a missile land on fucking like spaceship, like a space shuttle that's going out of control. They're like, we gotta land this thing. So they end up flying it into a mountain, blow up a part of the mountain so they can keep going, but then it crashes. Then they start fucking punching the trees. So they avoid the trees and are steering this airship, and then it's in a town and it's destroying all of the fucking roads and shit. So Pinky jumps out of the airship, does everything she can to stop it, and then fucking flips it over her head and flips it over a big ass building, and it lands. That's the shit I want to see from RWBY. Insane bullshit. And this was the first time in 3 seasons where I'm like, we got it. I do want to see very well choreographed fights, and you get a lot of that. That's also... But I also just want to see insanity. I love that. I'm sorry, talking about Symphogear makes me, like, just need to drink some water. Oh, fuck, that's good water. Fuck, we're already an hour in. I haven't even said anything about the characters. This buckle in, boys. This might be a long one. After that, you get the students fighting the giant mechs, which is pretty cool. And then Velvet uses her weapon and her fighting style, which is she can make light projections of other people's weapons. So she does it for Team RWBY. I think she does it for Team Juniper. I think she made one for Sun at one point too, because we do see her take a picture of Sun's weapon, and it makes sense. And I noticed a few shots where, like, oh, that's like, there's a shot where, like, she has the scythe and she's, like, jumping up, and, like, the way it's framed, like, that is specifically from the Red trailer. That is such a cool callback. And yeah, again, like I mentioned in the last video, it makes sense for Velvet to get this scene here, and unlike how they did it with Coco in season 2, because Velvet's had some buildup. She's someone that we've seen throughout the show. We don't know what she can do. And specifically in season 2, she's like, I can help. No. Wait. You don't need to use it yet. Hey, I can help. Okay. Take care of it. It's like, there's some buildup. And I think her fighting style is really cool. So, like, I dig this. I fuck with this a lot. After that, when RWBY is on the airship, she fights Torchwick and Neo at the same time and is just getting her ass kicked. Which, again, I like that. I like that it's not just easy. And it's, again, Neapolitan is a problem. Fighting her 1v1 would not be easy. The fact that she has someone else is making it a little more difficult. And I like the way RWBY gets out of it. Because, again, like, RWBY's... As much as I say them picking Weiss and Yang makes sense, like, here's the Unga Bunga win condition and here's the support character, RWBY should have been in that. RWBY probably should have been their one person that we are sending forward. And it's not just like, oh yeah, main characterness and blah, blah, blah. It's because she's the smart one. Which feels weird to say because RWBY's a really dumb character, like intentionally. Like she is not book smart, she is fight smart. Think something like Goku. But again, she is the one who's like, these are the formations, this is what we have to do. I've come up with a plan, let me do it. She's very strong, she's very fast, but she can also think on her feet. So while they're on an airship, she's holding on for dear life, and Neapolitan is just slowly sauntering over with a fucking blade. Not even really a blade, it's more just like a spear end. Comes out of the umbrella like to get the kill. What does RWBY do? She's like, okay, I'm gonna hit the button on her umbrella that makes it go open. And with all the fucking wind that's up here on the airship, it's gonna send her flying. And I don't have to deal with her anymore. Then it's just me and Torchwick. And that's not like a guaranteed win. He can still hold his own. But now that, like, the problem's gone. And, like, she doesn't say anything. It's just, like, Neapolitan is, like, doing her shit. RWBY sees it as, like, I'm doing this. But it's a really intelligent plan. And as much as I like Yang, I honestly don't think Yang would have thought of that. I think Yang would have tried to probably have just, like, jumped upwards and, like, tried to punch her. Which maybe would have worked. But she does that. Neo goes flying and doesn't show back up till, like, season 6, I think. Because I don't think she was... I know she was in season 4, and I don't think she was in season 5. RWBY fights Torchwick for a bit, which ends with a big-ass Grimm just showing up and eating him. Which, again, like, man, that's, like, one of the best characters in the show, and he's now gone. I get it. His role in the story of, like, getting the dust and making this plan happen is finished. Now we're kind of moving into the big boys when you get to Salem and, like, her inner circle. I get it. But, man, like, they're just one of the most consistently entertaining things in the show. Maybe that won't bode well for the rest of the series. I don't know. After, just kind of throughout this whole section, you just get Ironwood kicking ass. His weapon, he just has a gun. He's just glocking shit, and it's pretty fucking cool. You get to see what Crow's weapon really is. It's this sword, but they mention that he's a scythe user, and, like, RWBY talks about it. He's like, oh, yeah, it's like, you know, my uncle's a scythe user, so he taught me how to use it. And, like, yeah, his sword can trick into a scythe. I don't really like Crow, but, like, that's fucking cool. I can't disagree with that. I'm a scythe dude. Yang and Adam, which I did not write Yang versus Adam. I just wrote Yang is all right. If you've seen Arrested Development, you might know what I mean when I say that Yang is all right. It's not even a fight. She's just like, hey, you're that son of a bitch that has issues with Blake, and you're trying to hit Blake. Yeah, and then he just cuts her hand off. And I think it's her left hand, so she's all right. After that, there's kind of a fight between Cinder and Ozpin that's you kind of see in, like, stills and short animations. You don't really get to see it or know how it ends, so there's not really much to say. Then you get essentially the final fight of the season. I have one more listed after, like, kind of, again, on a technicality, between Pyrrha and Cinder. This one's pretty fucking cool. Even the way it starts with Pyrrha, like, okay, she is up there, the elevator's fucked. I'm gonna go into the elevator and use my magnetism powers to push the elevator up. I'm like, okay, we're getting to Symphogear territory. Like, we're kind of getting there. And it's genuinely, like, again, good, well choreographed fight. And I love just the use of powers in this fight. Again, like, Pyrrha's doing crazy shit. I don't really see her, like, relying on dust or being like, oh shit, like, I'm running out. But just, like, using her magnetism to do shit, Cinder using her fire to do shit, like the glass arrows and whatnot. There's this part where Pyrrha just buries her in a whole bunch of shit, and then it doesn't matter because it's all up in flames. Really cool, really cool, really cool, really cool. Oh, Pyrrha just fucking died. And I remembered that. I remember Penny dying and I remember Pyrrha dying. I was like, oh, yeah, that's really fucking bad. Because this is one of the most competent characters in the cast in terms of combat. And she didn't job. Like, she was doing the best she could in the circumstances, which is still pretty good. But she was still outclassed. And again, you can make an argument then it's like, well, that's really what a maiden is. It's like the magic, like the MP is just so strong, and the shit you can do is just so strong. And I'm like, I don't know if fire is necessarily a stronger power than magnetism. You can make an argument. But I do think it's a really cool fight. Like, we did lose a character that I did like. She definitely gets a lot more shit in season 3. Sad to see her go. RWBY is definitely sad to see her go, which, again, like, on a technicality, RWBY versus Cinder, which is essentially just, and then fucking light explodes from RWBY's eyeballs, and Cinder goes, yo, what the fuck? And then gets sent to the Shadow Realm, I guess, and the big-ass Grim that was outside gets Exodia'd, and that's it. I really fucking hate that scene. I'm gonna be honest. Like, yeah, it's foreshadowed because the first thing Ozpin says to her is like, you have silver eyes. So it's clear that silver eyes mean something, but also not really. Like, it's clear that Ozpin thinks that's important. And that could mean multiple things. That could be all maidens have silver eyes, which, well, that's not the case because Fall and Cinder didn't. Maybe because like Cinder, it seemed like she kind of got it later. Also, the way she took the power was like through a fucking like spider bug, like sapping it. I was like, ugh. I don't like that. I like that, but I don't like that. Ugh. It's like maybe silver eyes are the eye color of a specific maiden, and that could still be the case. I mean, her name was Summer Rose. I'm gonna assume she's the Summer Maiden until I'm told otherwise. Because I don't remember what season Raven was. Maybe Raven is the Summer Maiden. I'm like, fuck. There went that strat, but until proven otherwise, I'm gonna roll with that. So it could be just, I recognize that as a maiden's eye color. It could just be, I knew your mom. Like, again, like a Harry Potter thing. Everyone that knows Harry's parents, they're like, you look like your dad, you act like your dad, but you have your mother's eyes. Those are Lily's eyes. That could have been what was going on with Ozpin. It's like, those are the eyes of Summer Rose. I know exactly who this person is. If she's anything like her mom, and the little bit I've seen, as she might have that, with the right training and put in the right position, this kid could really be something. But no, what it turns out is like, yeah, people with silver eyes are, in history, they've always been these great warriors. Like, they were destined to be like these great fighters and protectors and shit. You're like, yeah, cool. Like, I can buy that. They also had super eye powers. What? Yeah, they had the power to like stare at a Grim and like destroy it or like freeze it in place. And like, that big ass Grim hasn't moved, kid. You got the power. I'm like, really? Like, that's how we got out of that situation? There's this big ass monster that's gonna do shit. It's okay. RWBY has eye powers. She has the Fluttershy stare that she didn't know she had. And she also completely fucked up Cinder with it. I just don't like it. It really feels like bullshit. Yes, again, they made it clear that the silver eyes had some meaning, but not that it was explicitly like, this is a game-ending superpower. Especially because that has nothing to do with RWBY's semblance. If RWBY didn't have a semblance, and she's like, I don't know what my special power is, and then we get that, you're like, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense. But that's not the case. She already had a special thing she could do that, again, isn't super well defined. Maybe it's wind, maybe it's silver, maybe it's speed. I mean, you can't, like, air jump if you're just fast, but I don't fucking know. That part didn't quite work. Like, I'm gonna not hate this or hate the season because of this. Because a lot of these fights, especially near the end, are like, oh, that's so good. Oh, that's so good. That's some crazy Symphogear shit. And like using the magnets for the elevator. I'm like, oh, that's fucking cool. Holy shit, a couple characters died. Like, this is fucking meaningful. I can't wait to see where we go with this. Okay, this is pretty fucking stupid. But that's the fights. I've already been here an hour and 14 minutes, and I have a lot more to say. So I'm going to cut it now. I'm going to go get something to eat because I'm kind of hungry, and then I'm going to finish talking about Volume 3.